Super Mario Galaxy looks like a simple Mario adventure set in space, but hidden inside the game is a story about cosmic rebirth, loneliness, and a mysterious storybook that explains the entire Mario universe. I know you don't expect this from a Mario game, but noticing these details really changes how you look at the entire universe. So tonight, get comfortable, relax, and let's take a slow look at the strange lore behind Super Mario Galaxy. Super Mario 64 was a massive moment for the gaming industry. It was one of the first truly successful 3D games ever created, and it essentially wrote the rulebook for how 3D platforms should work. Developers across the entire industry were studying what Nintendo had done, but the transition to 3D also created an unexpected problem. Back in the 2D era, almost anyone could pick up a controller and understand how to play. Movement was simple and intuitive, but once games moved into 3 dimensions, many players suddenly began struggling. Some people misjudged depth when jumping between platforms. Others found themselves getting lost in large 3D environments. And for some players, controlling the camera even caused motion sickness. Yoshiaki Koizumi, who served as an assistant director on Super Mario 64, eventually identified these issues as one of the biggest barriers new players faced when trying to enjoy 3D games. In trying to solve these problems, Nintendo introduced new camera systems and control solutions, but those fixes sometimes created new complications of their own. After Super Mario 64 was released, Shigeru Miyamoto assembled a team within Nintendo EAD to begin work on a follow-up project. The working title was Super Mario 128, and the goal was to solve many of the design challenges that had appeared with early 3D games. In the year 2000, Nintendo presented the concept of Space World, showcasing it as a technical demonstration for the upcoming GameCube. The demo, directed by Yoshiaki Koizumi, featured something unusual. The player controlled 128 tiny Marios running across a large saucer-shaped platform that constantly warped and changed form beneath them. The demonstration was never intended to become a full retail game, but Miyamoto noticed something important while watching it. Looking at the curved platform, he began to imagine a different idea entirely. What if Mario didn't explore flat worlds at all, but instead ran across small spherical planets? Miyamoto believed this approach could solve many of the problems early 3D games struggled with. If the worlds wrapped around themselves, players would be less likely to get lost, and because the environment curved naturally, the camera might not need as much complicated control. When Miyamoto presented this concept to Koizumi, the reaction was both excited and cautious. The idea sounded promising, but from a technical standpoint, it seemed almost impossible to build. Now, while Super Mario 128 was being tinkered with, Nintendo put out Super Mario Sunshine for the GameCube in 2002. That was the first new Super Mario game since 64, and it shared a lot of DNA with it. But Miyamoto was pretty clear that Sunshine had nothing to do with the Mario 128 project. He saw Sunshine more as a continuation of what Mario 64 started, not as the next evolution of the idea. Koizumi co-directed Sunshine, and honestly, he came away from it kind of bummed out. He had to deal with putting in another camera system, and he felt like it was actually even clunkier than the one in Mario 64. After that experience, he started thinking that maybe it was just too difficult to create what he called the perfect 3D control environment, a game that felt fun without also being unnecessarily stressful for the person playing it. That's a pretty discouraging place to land, but it ended up pushing him in a really interesting direction. So here's where things take a turn you probably wouldn't expect. Koizumi moved over to the brand new Nintendo EAD Tokyo studio, and his next project was Donkey Kong Jungle Beat, a 2D action-adventure platformer for the GameCube that came out in 2004. And get this, you played it with the DK bongos. You know, those goofy bongo drum controllers. They had way fewer buttons than a normal GameCube controller, but working within those limitations taught Koizumi something huge. He realized that you could make a really satisfying action game without demanding a ton of button input from the player. They developed the philosophy he called contextual binding, where the same buttons do different things depending on what happened in the game. So you get all this variety in gameplay without ever overwhelming the player with a million controls. Pretty clever, right? On top of that, Koizumi noticed something else. The game's over-the-top, exaggerated presentation made it super entertaining for people who weren't even holding the controller. Bystanders were genuinely having a blast just watching. So now he's got two big ideas in his pocket: simplified controls that still allow for deep gameplay, and a presentation style that entertains even the people on the couch next to you. He brought these concepts to Miyamoto, who was still grinding away on Super Mario 128 by himself at that point. And here's the kicker. Back in 2003, before Jungle Beat even started development, someone on the EAD Tokyo team had mentioned wanting to make the next Super Mario game. After the whole team bonded and leveled up their skills working on Jungle Beat together, Koizumi realized that they actually had what it took. They had the technical chops to rescue the struggling Mario 128 project and finally bring Miyamoto's spherical world vision to life. Fast forward to 2005, and Koizumi put together a proposal for a game called Super Mario Revolution, designed for the Wii, which was the GameCube successor. The pitch pulled from the Mario 128 demo and everything EAD Tokyo learned making Jungle Beat. The core idea was a 3D action platformer where Mario runs around on spherical worlds, and each world has its own center of gravity, so Mario can't just fall off the edge. Think about that for a second. No more accidentally walking off a cliff into the void. There would be very few walls or ceilings blocking your path either. If Mario just kept running in one direction, he'd loop all the way back to where he started. That alone would make it way harder for players to get lost. Once Nintendo's higher-ups gave it the green light, Koizumi and a small group from EAD Tokyo spent 3 months building a little prototype to show Miyamoto. They set the whole thing in outer space because, well, if you're running around on tiny spheres, most people are naturally going to think, oh, these are little planets. And that just makes sense. This kicked off a tradition where Miyamoto was always the first person to playtest every new build of the game. They eventually set up a system to send builds directly from Tokyo Studio to Miyamoto's office in Kyoto the moment they were done. And toward the end of development, Miyamoto started showing up at EAD Tokyo in person pretty regularly. As more people joined the project, it officially took over from the indefinitely stalled Mario 128. Miyamoto himself acknowledged during development that this was the true successor to Super Mario 64, which is a pretty big deal coming from him. At some point, they renamed it Super Mario Galaxy to match the whole outer space vibe. One of the guiding principles throughout development was what Koizumi called ease of play, basically making the controls as invisible and natural as possible so they never got in the way of your fun. They kept button inputs to a minimum. The spin move was created to complement jumping because Koizumi felt that jumping in 3D can be imprecise sometimes. You just shake the Wii remote and Mario spins. Originally, they let you spin endlessly with no cooldown, but Miyamoto had them add a brief delay afterward to keep things from feeling too easy. Classic Miyamoto move. That contextual binding philosophy from Jungle Beat showed up in a big way too. Different scenarios in the game change what your buttons do. Think about the rolling ball stages or the race surfing sections or all the different power-ups. Same controller, totally different feel. They all leaned hard into the Wii Remote's pointer functionality, using it to supplement or even replace traditional button presses because the team felt pointing was just more intuitive for people. And remember that whole camera problem that had been haunting them since Mario 64? EAD Tokyo built a completely new system called the Planet Camera. It gently follows Mario as he moves across a spherical surface without any sudden jerks or weird angles, and you never have to touch it. Zero camera input from the player. The team was incredibly serious about this because they absolutely did not want anyone feeling motion sick. They relied heavily on feedback from playtesters to make sure everything felt comfortable, which was a practice they'd also used a ton during Jungle Beat's development. This part is really cool. Nintendo wanted the Wii to reach people who didn't normally play games, and the Galaxy team took that mission seriously. They wanted the game to appeal to folks who had maybe never picked up a controller in their lives. One way they did this was through a cooperative multiplayer mode called Co-Star Mode. Player 1 controls Mario and a pointer, while Player 2 just has a pointer. That's it. So if you had a friend or family member who wasn't really into games, they could still participate in a meaningful way without being overwhelmed. The co-producer, Takao Shimizu, originally wanted both players to have identical pointer abilities, but Miyamoto pushed them to restrict certain actions to Player 2 only. This turned out to be a genius call because it totally changed the game's balance. For example, at first, Player 1 could freeze moving obstacles in place with their pointer, but the team realized it felt way better when only Player 2 could do that. It improved the whole flow of the experience. That desire to engage people who weren't playing also shaped the game's cinematic cutscenes and lively character animations. They wanted bystanders watching from the couch to be just as entertained, which traces back to what Koizumi observed during Jungle Beat. There were also deliberate efforts to make the game welcoming for beginners. B Mario is a great example of this approach. Koizumi believed that one of the simple joys of a Mario game is just moving around, so he made sure there were areas with no enemies and no objectives, just vibes. However, the earliest versions of the game swung too far in the easy direction. Miyamoto stepped in and reminded everyone that a game needs to feel challenging or people will mentally check out. So they recalibrated. One notable change was shrinking the health meter from 8 bars, which is what Mario 64 and Sunshine used, down to just 3. That's a big difference. They also made coins rarer and turned them into health restoration items instead. Before I get into the next part, I would really appreciate it if you could take a moment and subscribe to the channel. We got tons of videos in production that I'm sure you wouldn't want to miss. Here's some behind the scenes drama for you. Nintendo's executives were putting pressure on EAD Tokyo to get the game done close to the Wii's launch. Several of them were still salty that Super Mario Sunshine hadn't been a launch title for the GameCube, and they figured an earlier Mario release could have helped that console sell better. When Galaxy was first shown at E3 2006, Miyamoto said it would come out within 6 months of the Wii launching. But the EAD Tokyo team felt differently. They wanted to make a game that they were genuinely proud of, not rush something out the door. And honestly, good for them. The game ended up launching 11 months after the Wii, which is later than promised, but clearly the right call given how the game turned out. When they first showed the game at E3 2006, there were toads with star-shaped spots that gave you hints and could transform into rabbits. Those characters got replaced by Lumas in the final version. Rosalina was originally supposed to be related to Princess Peach and had a design that reflected that connection. Bonefin Galaxy and Deep Dark Galaxy were both intended to be much darker than they ended up being, but the team lightened them up because it made the game more playable. Guppy, that big shark character, was initially conceived as friendly and looked more like the dolphins from Super Mario World back in 1990. Some location changes happened too. Looking at old artwork, it seems like Sea Slide Galaxy and Beach Bowl Galaxy were originally imagined as one single galaxy, with Beach Bowl's main planet sitting in the center of Sea Slide's ring. The team had a soft spot for a piece of concept art they called Fortress because it was one of the very first drawings made during development. The planet in that art never made it into the final game, but you can see echoes of it in Good Egg Galaxy, Beach Bowl Galaxy, and Bowser's Jr. Robot Reactor. Oh, and they wanted Yoshi in the game. He even shows up in the 2005 Super Mario Revolution proposal document. But in the end, he only appears as a cameo. Yoshi fans had to wait for the sequel on that one. So how did the world receive Super Mario Galaxy? In a word, phenomenally. The game sits at a 97 out of 100 on Metacritic based on reviews from 73 accredited outlets, and it has a 91% score from over 3,400 user ratings. Both scores landed in the Universal Acclaim category. It holds the 4th largest Metascore on the entire site, trailing only The Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time, Soul Calibur from 1999, and Grand Theft Auto 4 from 2008. So basically, by these metrics, you're looking at the 4th best reviewed game ever made, and the single highest rated Mario game in existence. Let that sink in for a moment. A version of the game with higher definition graphics was released on the Nintendo Switch eShop on October 2nd, 2025. You can either buy it on its own or pick it up in a bundle with its sequel called Super Mario Galaxy plus Super Mario Galaxy 2. This updated version includes amiibo support, an assist mode for easier play, and additional pages added to Rosalina's storybook. And if that wasn't enough, a film inspired by the game titled The Super Mario Galaxy Movie is set to hit theaters on 3rd April 2026. Yeah, they're making a movie out of it. Given how rich the source material is, especially Rosalina's story, that could be something really special. So let's talk about the gameplay. You're controlling Mario, and the basic idea is that you're running across these spherical planetoids and platforming through levels to collect power stars. Your bread and butter is jumping, which lets you hop between platforms and stomp on enemies the way you'd expect from a Mario game. But here's where things get fresh. There's a brand new move called the spin. Instead of pressing a button, you just shake the Wii remote and Mario does this little twirl. It's super satisfying. You can use it to take out enemies that can't be stomped on, but it does way more than that. Spinning lets you activate switches, deflect certain attacks, slide across ice, throw items you're holding, and even get a tiny bit of extra height in the air. It's one of those moves that just keeps being useful in new ways. Actually, a lot of actions in this game aren't tied to traditional button presses. You're shaking, tilting, and rotating the Wii remote for all kinds of stuff. As for the camera, it mostly handles itself, gently panning around the level as you move. But if you want to adjust it, you can nudge it manually. You can also center it behind Mario with one button or pop into a first view with another. Pretty straightforward. And then there are these scenarios that completely change up what your inputs do. Sometimes, Mario hops on a rolling ball and you're tilting to steer. Other times, he's surfing on the back of a manta ray or floating through the air inside a giant bubble. Power-ups swap out his entire moveset for something totally different, which we'll get to. When Mario's in water, he can swim around freely. One button makes him dive, another makes him do a breaststroke to push forward. Nothing too complicated, but it feels good. Now here's something that really sets this game apart from other Mario titles. When you point the Wii remote at the screen, this little on-screen reticle pops up called the star pointer. It gives you a way to interact with the game world that's completely separate from what Mario is doing. If you just wave it over star bits, those little colorful collectibles scattered everywhere, it scoops them up automatically. You can also press a button to fire a star bit from the pointer, which is great because most enemies get stunned when you hit them with one. And if Mario walks into a stunned enemy, he just kicks it and it's done. Defeated. Plus it drops more star bits. It's this really satisfying loop. You just can't get enough of it. There are also these characters called Hungry Lumas hanging around. If you shoot enough star bits at them, they transform into entirely new levels. Yeah, you literally feed them into existence. It's one of those things that sound really wild until you remember that this is a game where a plumber is running around on tiny planets in outer space. Mario's health works a bit differently here than in previous 3D Mario games as well. He's got a 3-segment life meter. Take a hit, lose a segment. Lose all 3, lose a life. Simple. But if you find a life mushroom, it patches up any missing health and adds a second meter on top, giving you 6 bars total. The catch is that if you drop back down to 3 or fewer bars, that bonus meter vanishes permanently and you'd need another life mushroom to get it back. One nice change from earlier 3D games, Mario doesn't take fall damage anymore. You can plummet from ridiculous heights and he just lands like it's nothing. However, when he's underwater, there's an air meter ticking down. If that runs out, it starts eating into his regular health. So you can't just hang out beneath the surface forever. This is the part that really makes your brain do a little flip the first time you see it. Most levels are made up of clusters of small planetary bodies, and each one has its own center of gravity. So as Mario runs across them, he naturally bends around the surface. You can run all the way around the planets and end up right back where you started. Not all of them are perfect shapes, but they at least have rounded edges to sell the concept. Planets with sharp edges work differently. Those ones have a single gravitational plane, more like the traditional course from Mario 64 and Sunshine. Jump off the edge of one of those, you're falling into the void and losing a life. Some planetoids are close enough that Mario can just leap from one to the next, but others are way too far apart for that. That's where launch stars come in. These yellow objects catapult Mario through the sky like a cannonball, shooting him between distant planets. It looks incredible every single time. All these levels are accessed through domes scattered across the comet's observatory, which is the game's hub world, but we'll get into the specifics of how that all works in a bit. So the game has this multiplayer feature called Co-Star Mode. If you connect a second Wii remote, another player can jump in and help out by controlling their own star pointer. They get labeled as 2P on screen, while the main player shows 1P, so you can tell them apart. Player 2 can collect star bits and fire them at enemies to stun them, just like Player 1. But here's where it gets interesting. There are certain actions only the second player can do. The big one is the Co-Star Super Jump. If Player 2 aims their pointer at Mario and presses the button, Mario does this special high jump. You can even combine it with a regular jump to get some seriously impressive height. It works in midair too, but you can only do it once before Mario touches solid ground again. It's a really neat way to let someone less experienced contribute meaningfully without having to manage a whole character. Okay, so after you beat the final mission, the fate of the universe, with all 120 power stars collected, you unlock the ability to replay the entire game as Luigi. Up until this point, Luigi shows up as a non-playable character who helps Mario out in certain galaxies. But once you unlocked his playable model, everything changes just a little bit. Luigi can jump higher than Mario, which is awesome, but he has worse traction, meaning he slides around more when he stops or changes direction. He runs slightly faster too, but he takes longer to hit top speed. Underwater, Luigi loses air faster, and every time he spins while submerged, he burns through a chunk of his air supply. So he's a bit of a glass cannon in some ways. The rival races get tougher too. Cosmic Luigi is harder to beat than Cosmic Mario. On the flip side, Princess Peach sends Luigi 20 1-up mushrooms instead of the 5 Mario gets. Though if his life counter is already pretty high, he only gets 5. The story itself stays almost completely the same, which leads to this hilarious situation where the original NPC version of Luigi is still wandering around the game world. He reacts with visible confusion when he sees another Luigi standing right in front of him, which honestly never stops being funny. Apparently, his height is marginally different between the two versions, which is the kind of tiny detail that makes you love Nintendo. Once you collect 120 Power Stars with Luigi and replay the final mission again, Grand Finale Galaxy opens up for both characters. That's where you grab the 121st Power Star with each of them. Rosalina refers to this whole mode as another world. In the Japanese version, she describes it as a world where Mario might encounter his alternate self who isn't actually him. That's some multiverse stuff right there, and the game just drops it so casually. Now let's really dig into where this game takes place, because the world building is something else. Super Mario Galaxy is set in outer space. With the sole exception of Grand Finale Galaxy, which takes place in Princess Peach's castle gardens back in the Mushroom Kingdom, every single level is staged on worlds far removed from Mario's home planet. The game calls these levels galaxies. This is actually the first time a mainline Super Mario game explicitly featured an outer space setting since the Space Zone in Super Mario Land 2 6 Golden Coins way back in 1992. And it's the first time Nintendo EAD, the studio behind most of the main Super Mario games, have ever realized a space setting in the series. A galaxy in this game is basically an isolated cluster of small planets and other celestial bodies. Some are spheres, plenty are not. Most have their own gravitational pull, which is the key innovation here. The gravity lets Mario loop around a planet's surface without falling off. His movement, physics, and trajectory all bend naturally around whatever shape the planet is. When planets are close enough together, their gravitational fields let Mario jump directly between them. For more distant planets, you use objects like launch stars, which shoot Mario across space, or pull stars, which you grab with the pointer to drag Mario along a set path. Not every planet pulls Mario inward though. Some have inverted gravity, so when you go inside them, Mario walks on the underside of the ground. Other planets are designed more like traditional Mario 64 or Sunshine courses with a single gravitational plane, one direction for down. You can tell these apart because they have sharp edges and steep drops along their sides, while planets with their own spherical gravity always have rounded edges. Some planets are even on 2D planes, where Mario's movement is restricted accordingly, so you can't accidentally walk toward the camera and fall off. 5 galaxies include gravity fields in their 2D sections that shift the direction of gravity from the floor to another surface, which is a really cool twist. The outer space theme isn't just a backdrop. It's woven into every visual detail. Many galaxies feature distant asteroid belts or views of massive planets you can't reach, orbiting suns that peek over the horizon. The lighting is genuinely impressive for a Wii game. Depending on how far something is from the camera, the light from a visible sun retracts, mimicking how real sunlight behaves. The skyboxes are gorgeous, full of nebulas, auroras, and sprawling starry skies. 3-dimensional objects, including Mario himself, have this soft Fresnel-like glow in certain positions, as if distant starlight is hitting them. It's subtle, but it makes everything look magical. In a lot of galaxies, black holes sit where bottomless pits would normally be. That's such a smart thematic swap. The game also sprinkles in science fiction elements like humanoid robots, fortified battle stations, UFOs, starships, an orchestral soundtrack, and these theremin-like synthesizers that give certain areas an eerie, spacey feel. But here's what's really charming. Despite all the cosmic grandeur, much of the game has this whimsical, dreamlike quality that feels like something out of a children's storybook. The locations are tranquil and sometimes surreal. Instead of traditional aliens, the people living in the galaxies include star bunnies, honeybees, and penguins. Starbits, those little collectibles that rain from the sky like shooting stars, look like conpeto candies. You can feed them to lumas. There are planets and even whole galaxies that look like deserts. It's this beautiful blend of vast cosmic wonder and cozy playful imagination. You really don't see that combination very often. The whole thing is accessed through the Comet Observatory, a palace-like starship that serves as the hub world. It's overseen by Rosalina and functions as a nursery for the Lumas, these spacefaring star children. More on that in a moment. Galaxies are accessed inside domes of the Comet Observatory. The domes are spread across the hub, kind of like how level access points were distributed in Mario 64 and Sunshine. But here's the difference. Instead of each access point leading to a single course, each dome contains a set of 5 different galaxies, with the exception of the Garden Dome. Domes unlock one after another as you meet certain requirements, which makes them function sort of like the worlds in classic 2D Mario games like Super Mario Bros. 3. But like the 3D games before it, if you're not locked into a strict linear progression, you have freedom in which mission and galaxies you tackle. Each galaxy contains missions, and completing a mission earns you a Power Star. One mission, one Power Star. At the start of every mission, there's a brief cinematic that previews the galaxy and gives you a hint about where the Power Star is located, similar to what Sunshine did. Once you've collected enough Power Stars total, new galaxies within the current dome or in subsequent domes start becoming available. Here's a cool detail. Only half of the Power Stars in the entire game are required to reach the end. You need a minimum of 60 out of 120 to access the final level. So if you go hard and complete a bunch of missions in one dome, you might unlock everything in the next dome the instant you walk in. At the center of every dome sits a pull star. When you grab it, Mario gets pulled into this interactive selection screen showing all the galaxies in that dome orbiting around the pull star. It literally looks like a model solar system, with each galaxy following a circular path around the center, and the positioning isn't random. The distance from the pole star tells you something meaningful. Galaxies closer to the center have the most missions and require the fewest power stars to unlock. Galaxies farther out have fewer missions but need more power stars. There's a clear positive correlation between distance and power star requirements, and a negative correlation between distance and the number of available missions. It is an intuitive visual system that communicates a lot without needing text. Robust galaxies have at least 6 missions each. They either feature a ton of visitable planets or a smaller selection of really large ones to explore. The missions build on each other, sometimes environmentally, sometimes narratively. So what happens in one mission foreshadows what comes next. 2 or more of the 6 missions usually involve a boss fight. Most domes have 2 or 3 robust galaxies, and they are all listed on the first page of the in-game star list. These are also the only galaxies that get visited by prankster comets, but we'll cover those in a second. In the terrace, the robust galaxies are Good Egg Galaxy and Honey Hive Galaxy. Mystery galaxies contain just 1 mission each. Before you unlock them, they show up as question mark block-shaped preview models, which is a nice touch. These galaxies are really distinctive in their themes and objectives. Some are minigame-style challenges like race surfing or ball rolling. Others are aesthetic obstacle courses. To unlock a mystery galaxy, you usually need to complete a specific mission in another galaxy on top of having enough power stars. Each dome has 1 or 2 of them. In the terrace, there are Loop Galaxy and Flip Switch Galaxy. Bowser Strongholds also contain 1 mission each. They have tilted orbits on the selection screen, which is a cool visual tell. These are linear obstacle courses that build towards a boss battle at the end. Half of them involve Bowser Jr. either fighting him directly or dealing with a boss he's let loose, like Mega Leg or King Caliente. The other half feature Bowser himself. Every dome except the garden has 1 stronghold always on the outermost ring. These galaxies have the highest or second highest power star threshold, and beating them is required to unlock the next dome and progress through the game. Their preview model on the selection screen looks like a bust of Bowser's head with glowing eyes, which is appropriately menacing. In the terrace, the stronghold is Bowser Jr.'s robot reactor. Some galaxies can be accessed outside the domes entirely. With the exception of Gateway Galaxy, these can still be categorized as either mysterious galaxies or Bowser's strongholds. Most of them are unlocked by feeding hungry Lumas the number of star bits they request. These Lumas pop up on the Comet Observatory once you've met certain criteria within the dome galaxies. There's a hungry Luma associated with every dome, so each one essentially gives you a bonus level. There's also this tiny house called the Gate, sitting on a grassy platform that orbits the observatory. It leads to Gateway Galaxy, which is actually the very first level of the game. You can only revisit it through the gate after completing the Kin Caliente Spicy Return. There's a hungry Luma associated with it too. Then there's the Planet of Trials, a planetoid orbiting the observatory that has 3 galaxies of its own. You can reach it once you've collected all 3 secret green power stars. After collecting 120 power stars with both Mario and Luigi, a launch star appears on the Planet of Trials that takes you to the grand finale galaxy. And finally, Bowser's Galaxy Reactor, the game's last level, only becomes reachable by speaking to Rosalina after you've collected at least 60 power stars. During the main game, Mario runs into his brother in 4 galaxies: Good Egg Galaxy, Honey Hive Galaxy, Battle Rock Galaxy, and Ghostly Galaxy. In Ghostly Galaxy specifically, Luigi is waiting at the end of the mission, Luigi and the Haunted Mansion, and he hands Mario a power star when you reach him. After you rescue Luigi, he shows up on the Comet Observatory and offers to help Mario track down more power stars. Whenever Luigi heads out to a galaxy, he inevitably gets stuck and sends Mario a letter asking for help. Each letter comes with a photo hinting at his location. If you find him in the galaxy, you're rewarded with a secret power star. The fact that Luigi keeps getting himself into trouble is both endearing and, let's be honest, very on brand of him. Prankster comets are these objects that mess with galaxies by altering their rules or adding new challenges. All 30 comet stars in the game come from completing special missions in the robust galaxies. These include speedruns, where you have to reach the power star within a time limit, daredevil runs, where a single hit kills you, races against Cosmic Mario, and missions where every enemy and obstacle moves at double speed. These special missions only show up after you've already beaten the corresponding normal mission, though sometimes they appear immediately and other times they show up later. Prankster comets appear and disappear in an alternating pattern. If you complete a mission while one is active, all prankster comets vanish until you beat another mission. Each robust galaxy has 2 comets, one of the challenge types I just described, plus a purple comet where Mario has to collect 100 purple coins scattered through the level. These purple comets only start showing up after you've beaten the Fate of the Universe at least once. Here's a handy trick. You can manipulate which prankster comets appear and where by feeding Comet Luna 20 star bits. So, if a specific comet challenge is haunting a galaxy you want to visit normally, you can shuffle things around. That's a nice quality of life touch. The Comet Observatory is your home base throughout the entire game, and it's honestly one of the most atmospheric hub worlds in any Mario game. It's this sprawling palace-like structure with a tall central spire and ornamental architecture. Visually, it kind of evokes Peach's castle from Mario 64, which feels intentional. At its core is a comet called the Beacon, fueled by power stars. The beacon is what allows the observatory to travel through space, though for most of the game, it stays in orbit around Mario's home planet. The observatory has 2 orbiting satellites, the Planet of Trials and the grassy platform holding the gate. That platform is directly connected to the observatory via warp pads, unlike the Planet of Trials, which requires the green power stars to reach. Including Gateway Galaxy, there are 9 galaxies accessible directly from the observatory, 6 of which come from the hungry Lumas tied to each dome. Unlike the hub worlds of previous 3D Mario games, there are no hidden power stars directly found on the observatory itself, though accessing the Planet of Trials, entering the gate, and the arrival of hungry Lumas are represented in a similar fashion. 5 one-up mushrooms are tucked away around the observatory if you go looking. When Mario first arrives, most of the observatory is shrouded in darkness because the power stars have been stolen. The terrace is the only accessible room at first. As you collect more power stars, energy flows back into the observatory and new areas light up, visually communicating that they're now open. Throughout the hub, warp pads let you quickly teleport between adjacent locations. Once Mario completes Gateway's purple coins, a red star appears above the bedroom. Touching it transforms him into Flying Mario, letting him soar freely through the observatory skies. And as mentioned earlier, Mario can't take damage while on the observatory. If he falls off the edge, he's safely returned to solid ground. It's basically the safest place in the entire universe. The Comet Observatory doubles as a nursery for the Lumas, with Rosalina caring for them as if they were her own children. As light returns to the observatory, more and more Lumas appear. Rosalina actually built the observatory during her childhood with the help of the apricot-collared Luma. Over time, as more Lumas showed up and needed looking after, she expanded its size. The observatory visits Mario's homeworld once every 100 years, and that visit is what the Mushroom Kingdom celebrates as the Star Festival. When the beacon reaches its maximum size, Rosalina can fold the entire observatory into the shape of a rocket ship and soar through space like a comet. That's such an incredible visual. The domes are framed as extensions of the observatory that provide views of the cosmos. Each one is themed around a room in a house, a bedroom, a kitchen, and so on. It gives the whole place this cozy domestic feeling that contrasts beautifully with the vastness of space outside. There are two locations similar in concept that aren't classified as domes: the garage and the library. The garage is framed as an intergalactic repair shop where starships can dock. This is where the Toad Brigade and Luigi set up shop once you complete B. Mario Takes Flight and Luigi and the Haunted Mansion, respectively. The library is this closed-off space behind the beacon that becomes accessible after you complete the Fiery Stronghold. You enter it like a dome, but it doesn't contain any galaxies or tangible gameplay rewards. The player is never required to go in there, and yet it might be the most important room in the entire game. This is where Rosalina reads a storybook to the Lumas. New chapters unlock as Mario collects more power stars. The book tells Rosalina's personal backstory, the history of the Comet Observatory, and provides insight into the past of the Apricot Luma that travels with Mario. This whole section was created by Yoshiaki Koizumi and included at the discretion of Shigeru Miyamoto. And here's an interesting tension behind that. Miyamoto generally feels that complex narrative elements are unnecessary for a Mario game, but Koizumi believed that they help the player to develop an emotional connection that keeps them motivated. In Koizumi's view, making the storybook optional achieves this without burdening players who just want to jump on stuff without worrying about plot. It contextualizes the game's premise for those who seek it out without forcing it on anyone. Rosalina's story is recognized for its heartfelt and melancholic tone. The illustrations on the pages and the narrative themes have been compared to The Little Prince, which is honestly a pretty apt comparison when you think about the themes of loneliness, love, and finding meaning in the cosmos. Alright, let's talk about what's trying to stop you. Super Mario Galaxy has roughly 90 enemies, and about 50 of them are completely new to the series. Most enemies drop coins when stomped on or star bits when spun into. If an enemy is actively chasing Mario and manages to land a hit, it usually pauses for a moment afterward, giving you time to recover before you have to deal with it again. Some enemies, like piranha plants, actually laugh at Mario when they successfully damage him. Rude. The new enemies are really creative. You've got octopus creatures that spit rocks, spinning top enemies, and stationary beamers that shoot rings of electricity. Some of the newcomers are clearly evolved versions of classic Mario enemies. Goom Beetles are basically Goombas wearing Buzzy Beetle helmets. Pumpkinhead Goombas are Goombas with jack-o'-lantern heads. Bomboos are explosive boos that don't care if you stare at them. Spiny piranha plants are beefier, thorned versions of regular piranha plants. A lot of the new enemies function as extraterrestrial counterparts to established ones. Electro Goombas look like alien Goombas. Monty and Underground are analogous to Rocky Wrench and Monty Mole. Gringel fills a similar role to Unagi. Some even resemble enemies from the Legend of Zelda series, like bats that look like keys, and the octopus enemies that are reminiscent of Octoroks. The Japanese name for Rocto actually derives directly from Octorok. That's a fun crossover detail if I do say so. What's really cool is how the new enemies are tied to specific environments. Top men and beamers mostly appear in militarized locations like Battle Rock Galaxy and Dreadnought Galaxy. Slepals and Flipbugs show up almost exclusively in grassy, natural settings like Honeyhive Galaxy and Gutty Garden Galaxy. Jammy Fish and Jammer War only inhabit dark deep waters. It gives each environment a distinct ecological feel. The game also brings back a ton of enemies from previous Mario titles, and for some of them, this is the first time they've ever appeared in a 3D platformer. There are enemies in this game that, outside of re-releases and remakes, hadn't been seen since the original debut titles. That's a really cool bit of fan service. This approach contrasts sharply with the previous 3D Mario game, which used past enemies conservatively and introduced new ones that mostly never showed up again. Some returning enemies got significant makeovers too. Micro Goombas are almost as big as normal Goombas now, and have rounder bodies. Chain Chomps are chainless and act like boulders rolling around. Urchins crawl along the seafloor instead of swimming freely. Spiny Cheep Cheeps look like balloon-like porcupine fish. It's familiar, but fresh at the same time. Okay, the bosses in this game deserve some attention because they're honestly really well designed. Like previous Mario games, most bosses are beefed up versions of normal enemies, and nearly all of them trigger a change in the background music when you encounter them. The Mandibug stack is the only exception. Here's something really smart about the boss design. The game subtly teaches you how to defeat a boss through the level design leading up to the fight. Before you face Dino Piranha in Good Egg Galaxy, for example, if you take the main path, you'll run into a spiny piranha plant surrounded by rubbery bulbs. Smacking those bulbs at the piranha plant is essentially a tutorial for how to deal with Dino Piranha's clubbed tail. Some of these teaching moments span multiple missions and even different galaxies. Kingfin's tutorial is actually in Drip Drop Galaxy, not Bonefin Galaxy where you fight him, and the game makes sure you've completed the instructional mission before Bonefin Galaxy even becomes available. That's such thoughtful design. Most bosses go down in 3 hits to their weak point, which is standard Mario fare. The Mandibug stack only takes 2, and both Megaleg and Mecha Bowser require you to climb them and deliver a specific attack at the top. Almost all bosses get faster and more aggressive the more damage they've taken, often becoming visibly enraged and sometimes even glowing red. Some completely switch up their tactics midway through the fight. Boogaboom takes to the air. Poltergeist spawns a massive pair of stone hands. Several spawn additional minions as the battle drags on. A few bosses show up more than once, and when you refight them in a later galaxy, they have new tricks and mechanics that make the rematch harder. The ones with the most dramatic changes even get a color swap and are listed as separate bosses in official materials, despite sharing the name and base model, that is. Otherwise, most rematches come from Prankster Comets, specifically the Speedy Comet or Daredevil Comet variants. Every time you land a hit on a boss, they release a shower of star bits. When defeated, they usually give you a power star to end the mission. The one exception is the Water Bazooka in Bubble Blastoff, which you fight at the beginning of the mission and rewards you with access to a usable cannon instead. Here are all the bosses. Dino Piranha is a piranha plant with a big clubbed tail. It charges at Mario whenever it spots him. You spin into the club to knock it against its head for damage. After the first hit, it charges notably faster. You fight it in Dino Piranha and Dino Piranha Speedrun. Caliente is a giant Rocto sitting in lava. He fires coconuts and flaming rocks at you. Spin a coconut back at him and it deals damage. As the fight goes on, he starts parrying your returned coconuts, so you have to volley them back and forth. You face him in King Caliente's battle fleet. Mandibug stack is a Mandibug carrying its child on its back. Both are defeated with ground pounds. Taking out the kid first enrages the parent and makes it harder to hit. You deal with them in trouble on the tower. Boogaboom is a giant winged mandibug that tries to chomp Mario with its jaws. Ground pound it to deal damage. After the first hit, it takes flight and starts dropping explosives from above. You fight it in Big Bad Boogaboom. Megaleg is an enormous robot. Its legs are covered in gravitational panels so Mario can walk up its body. Bill blasters are built into it, and there's a grand star trapped in a cage on its head. To free it, you have to lure a bullet bill up there and crash it into the cage. You face it in Megaleg's moon. Camilla is a Magic Koopa boss who launches magical fireballs and green shells from her wand. Hitting her with the shells is the only way to deal damage. As the fight progresses, she starts teleporting erratically. You encounter her in Camilla's airship attack, the underground ghost ship, and Ghost Ship Daredevil Run. Tarantox is a giant spider wrapped in silk. Green orbs on its body are its weak points. You damage them by launching Mario at them using sling pods. After the first hit, it starts spitting acid. You fight it in Tarantox's tangled web. Top Maniac is a large top man with serrated blades around its edges. Jumping on its head retracts the blades, allowing you to safely spin into an electric rail for damage. You face it across several missions: Top Maniac and the Top Man Tribe, Top Maniac's Daredevil Run, Revenge of the Top Man Tribe, and Top Man Tribe Speedrun. Bowser himself, the fire-breathing king of the Koopas. He launches himself skyward and slams back down to create shockwaves. If you lure him over a glass panel, he crashes through and burns his tail on the lava below, leaving him open to a spin attack. He can conjure stone armor and roll around like a ruby rock. He even refers to Mario as his arch-enemy. You battle him in the Fiery Stronghold, Darkness on the Horizon, and the Fate of the Universe. Bouldergeist is a ghost encased in rocks. It throws boulders and sends stone spikes erupting from the ground. You attack it by tossing bamboos to shatter its armor, leaving it vulnerable. In the second phase, it constructs these giant stone hands to attack and defend itself. This is also the boss that kidnapped Luigi. You fight it in Beware of Bouldergeist and Bouldergeist's Daredevil Run. Bowser Jr. rides a miniature airship that fires bullet bills and cannonballs. Magic Koopas assist him during the fight. Throwing shells at the airship damages it until it sinks. Beyond this battle, Bowser Jr. has a recurring presence throughout the story. You fight him in Sinking the Airships. Major Burrows is a giant underground chasing a star bunny. He tunnels underground towards Mario and then bursts out with swiping claws. When his head is poking out, you ground pound the ground nearby to force him to the surface, then spin him. You face him in the dirty tricks of Major Burrows and Major Burrows' Daredevil Run. Baron Bar is a big ice bubble. He fires ice balls that freeze Mario on contact. If you get close, he slams himself downward and creates a freezing shockwave. When he's near the ground, you can spin him, which strips away his icy aura and deals damage. You encounter him in the frozen peak of Baron Burr. Water Bazooka consists of blue rotating cannons operated by underground gunners. They fire water droplets that trap Mario on contact. The glass-encased cockpit is the weak point. You face these in When It Rains It Pours and Bubble Blast Off. Mecha Bowser is this massive robot built to look like Bowser. Guillermos are trapped inside its mouth. To free them and destroy the robot, you have to ground pound the stack of stone wheels on top of its head. You take it on in Heavy Metal Mecha Bowser. Electric Bazooka is a yellow cannon operated by an underground gunner. This one shoots homing balls of electricity at Mario. You encounter it in Bouncing Down Cake Lane. Kingfin is a huge shark guarded by a school of smaller bone fins. Shells are its weakness. As it swims, it destroys underwater pillars. It doesn't actively chase Mario, but it keeps summoning more bone fins as the fight goes on. You face it in Kingfin's fearsome waters. Black King Caliente is King Caliente but powered up. He fires more projectiles, can immediately parry your returns, and causes meteors to rain from the sky during the battle. You encounter him in King Caliente's Spicy Return. Black Dino Piranha is a faster, more dangerous version of Dino Piranha. Its club tail periodically catches fire. The flames burn Mario and prevent him from spinning the club when they're active. After each successful hit, it gets even faster, leaving walls of fire in its wake while spewing giant flaming projectiles. Beating this boss without taking damage requires seriously precise timing. Good luck with that one. Now let's talk about the power-ups, because they really add a lot of variety to the gameplay. The bee mushroom is this yellow mushroom with brown stripes on its cap. When Mario grabs it, he transforms into Bee Mario, and it's honestly adorable. In this form, he can fly for a limited time, climb honey walls, and cling to the queen bee. He can also uniquely stand on flowers and clouds, which opens up platforming routes that would be impossible otherwise. Collecting coins extends his flight time slightly. The catch is that touching water immediately reverts him back to normal, so you've got to be careful around any puddles or pools. The bee mushroom first shows up in Honey Hive Galaxy, and the first mission, Bee Mario Takes Flight, is basically a tutorial for everything the power-up can do. It pops up again in the boss fight against Bugaboom, in Honey Climbed Galaxy, where you climb a series of honey walls, throughout the first 3 missions of Gold Leaf Galaxy, in Sea Slide Galaxy for collecting silver stars and purple coins, and in Sand Spiral Galaxy, where you choose between it and the Boo Mushroom to navigate a hazardous corridor. There's a toad standing nearby in that level who says, "These yellow mushrooms are super delicious," but then quickly clarifies that he didn't arrive at this opinion from eating them all day. Sure, buddy. When you pick up the bee mushroom, the toad cheers, "You're the best, Mario." In Super Mario Galaxy 2, the bee mushroom returns in Honey Bloom Galaxy and Honey Hop Galaxy, and after collecting 120 power stars, one appears in the Tail Trunk Galaxy section of the ending credits. Luba's reaction when he first sees it is priceless. "What's that? A striped mushroom? I've never seen one of those before." Yeah, have fun with your unusual toy there. I ain't judging. The Rainbow Star is the game's version of the classic Superstar, renamed here to avoid confusion with Power Stars. When Mario grabs it, he turns into Rainbow Mario, becoming rainbow-colored and leaving a trail of light behind him as he runs. In this form, he's invincible, releases star bits from any enemy he damages, can smash through certain objects and obstacles like chomps and boulders, runs faster, and jumps both farther and higher. You can still die from falling into space or a black hole though, so don't get too cocky. As the power-up starts wearing off, the music speeds up along with Mario's running pace, creating this frantic rush to make the most of your remaining time. The only mission where a rainbow star is actually required is the Golden Chomp. The Boo Mushroom is a white mushroom with a Boo's face on it. Picking it up transforms Mario into Boo Mario, which is simultaneously cool and a little creepy. In this form, he can float in midair and phase through specific barriers by using the spin to become temporarily intangible. The downsides are significant though. Being in Boo form attracts other Boos towards you, and they can deal damage and revert you back to normal. Getting hit by a light beam also strips the power up. It first appears in Ghostly Galaxy during Luigi and the Haunted Mansion, where you need it to break into the sealed room where Luigi is trapped. Here's a funny detail. Luigi is terrified of Boo Mario, so you have to use a nearby light source to change back to normal before he'll give you the Power Star. The Boo Mushroom also shows up in Sand Spiral Galaxy as an alternative to the Bee Mushroom, and in Boo's Boneyard Galaxy, where you race the spooky speedster. In Galaxy 2, it appears in Boo Moon Galaxy during Hunting the Howling Tower, where you phase through walls to climb a tower. Luba's comment on this one, "What do we have here? Looks like a soft white mushroom, eh? You know, the stuff you're finding is pretty weird, but I guess that's just the universe we live in, right?" Fair point, Luba. Fair point. The spring mushroom is a metallic mushroom with eyes and a coiled spring for a cap. When Mario grabs it, a spring wraps around him, turning him into Spring Mario. In this form, he bounces around constantly instead of walking. He can't run, which makes him slower and honestly quite tricky to control, but he can jump a bit higher than normal, and if you time a jump perfectly when he hits the ground, he does this incredibly high bounce. Spring Mario also automatically jumps if he makes contact with the wall, touching water, a sling star, a launch star, or taking any damage reverts him back to normal. It first appears in Toy Time Galaxy during Heavy Metal Mecha Bowser, where you use it to navigate platforms with sentry beams before eventually taking down Mecha Bowser. It comes back in the third mission, Bouncing Down Cake Lane, for the fight against the Electric Underground's Gunner. It also shows up in Matasplata Galaxy's Watch Your Step, where you have to bounce through disappearing platforms high in the air really quickly. Interestingly, it's apparently possible to beat the entire Toy Time Galaxy without ever using the Spring Mushroom, but I wouldn't recommend it unless you enjoy suffering. In Galaxy 2, the Spring Mushroom is exclusively found in Chompworks Galaxy during Spring into the Chompworks, where you bounce over chomps and spring up a tower. Again, technically skippable, but why would you? Dubious take? Wait. This is a spring, huh? So you wear that? Does it make a big boing sound when you poke it? Wait. Luba really is the galaxy's class clown. The red star is a special item that resembles a red grand star and holds the power of the red lumas. When Mario touches it, he transforms into Flying Mario, gaining the ability to soar through the air. It's comparable to the wing cap from Mario 64, but Flying Mario has more freedom of movement, doesn't sprout wings, and is self-propelled, more like the P-Wing. His clothes change to a black cap and overalls with red shoes, and his hands glow as he leaves red streaks in its path. Flight is activated by performing a spin in midair, not a triple jump like the wing cap required. While flying, holding a button lets you stop in midair, with red streaks pointing in the direction you're facing. The red star also pulls in nearby star bits and coins when you spin. A red luma first introduces Mario to the red star in Gateway Galaxy. On the Comet Observatory, a red star appears above the bedroom after completing Gateway's purple coins. It can be used for exploration around the observatory and to reach a few one-up mushrooms that are otherwise inaccessible, like the one on top of the garden spire and the one beneath the gate. Here's a notable trivia point for you. The red star is the only power-up not listed in the game's instruction booklet, probably because you don't encounter it until near the end. It's also one of the only two power-ups that didn't return in Galaxy 2, the other being the Ice Flower. However, the Red Star's theme music was actually updated for Galaxy 2 to match the other power-ups, and Flying Mario is fully complete on the game's disc. This suggests it was cut very late in development. Apparently, to activate it, you just have to disable the event table for obtaining a power-up for the first time. So it's right there, just hidden behind a flag. Interesting. Okay, we have to talk about the soundtrack because it might be the single greatest musical achievement in a video game at the time it released. And I'm not exaggerating. The vast majority of the music was composed and arranged by Mahito Yokota, who had previously composed the entire soundtrack for Donkey Kong Jungle Beat, EAD Tokyo's first game. Legendary series composer Koji Kondo contributed 4 tracks himself and also served as a mentor to Yokota, helping him develop the right sound for the game. Super Mario Galaxy is the first Super Mario game to feature a fully orchestrated soundtrack. Let that sink in. After decades of synthesized bleeps and bloops and MIDI arrangements, they went and hired a live orchestra. The orchestra performed at Sound In Studios in Tokyo and consisted of around 50 musicians collectively dubbed the Mario Galaxy Orchestra. The conductor was Koji Haishima, who had previously conducted music for Square Enix's Final Fantasy series and Capcom's Monster Hunter series. Some of the pieces are orchestral arrangements of classic Kondo compositions from Super Mario Bros., Super Mario Bros. 3, and Super Mario 64. Hearing those beloved melodies performed by a full orchestra is genuinely magical. Here's the thing though, getting a live orchestra approved was not easy. Yokota was professionally trained in orchestral composition and really wanted to use one. But when he pitched the idea to producer Shigeru Miyamoto, he was met with resistance. Miyamoto was worried about the costs and felt that orchestral music might actually pull players out of the experience rather than immerse them. That's why live instrumentation had only seen occasional limited use in Nintendo's games before this. The whole process of finding the right sound took 3 painful months. Based on what previous Mario games sounded like, Yokota's first attempts drew from Latin and pop music styles. Director Yoshiaki Koizumi approved of these early efforts, but Kondo was not happy. When Yokota presented his work to Kondo, he got one of the most iconic pieces of creative direction feedback ever. Yokota-san, if somewhere in your mind you have an image that Mario is cute, please get rid of it. Mario is cool. That's that's such a power move from Kondo. The experience combined with 3 grueling months of rejected work actually made Yokota consider leaving the project entirely. Can you imagine if he had? We would have lost one of the greatest game soundtracks ever made. The breakthrough came when Yokota presented Miyamoto with 3 different musical pieces. One fully orchestral, one mixing orchestral and pop elements, and one entirely pop. He asked Miyamoto which style felt right for Super Mario Galaxy. Miyamoto chose the fully orchestrated version, saying it sounded the most space-like. That piece was called Egg Planet, and it had been penned by Koji Kondo. It accompanied the game's debut trailer at E3 2006 and became the level theme for Good Egg Galaxy in the final game. Miyamoto's preference for it is what finally allowed Yokota to lock in his creative direction and find his sound. Yokota personally oversaw the recording sessions at Sound In, and here's a really unique detail. Unlike most orchestras, the musicians played along to a metronome that was set to a tempo matching Mario's running speed. Yokota did this because he didn't want the music to feel like passive background noise. He wanted it to sound like an organic living part of the game itself. That philosophy extended even further with how the music responds to the player. A soundtrack is an influenceable element, meaning your actions actually affect what you hear. Take Rosalina in the Observatory, the waltz that plays on the Comet Observatory. There are 3 variations of it. The first one plays early in the game when most areas are dark and inaccessible. It's sparse and simple in its orchestration. As you collect more power stars and more of the observatory lights up, the variation that plays becomes progressively richer and more fully orchestrated. It's such a beautiful, subtle touch that rewards your progress, not just visually but musically as well. Within the levels themselves, unique sound effects and musical cues sync up with your actions in real time. Sound director Masafumi Kawamura built this system by expanding on what he'd done in The Legend of Zelda: The Wind Waker in 2003 and Jungle Beat, which had limited instances where player actions influenced the music. In Galaxy, this integration runs through the majority of the game. The technical wizardry behind it involved synchronizing a stream of raw recorded data from the orchestra with MIDI data. The result is this heightened sense of rhythm and immersion, where the music feels like it's responding to you. It's the kind of thing you might not consciously notice, but it absolutely elevates the experience. On January the 31st of 2008, 2 versions of the soundtrack were released in Japan through Club Nintendo. The Standard Edition has 28 tracks on a single disc. The Platinum Edition packs 81 tracks across 2 discs. The Platinum Edition also launched in Europe on the same date. The Standard Edition eventually made it to the United States on October the 23rd, 2011, bundled with a Wii console package. The Platinum Edition didn't become available in the US until Super Mario 3D All-Stars launched on September the 18th, 2020. Select tracks from Galaxy have shown up in various compilation albums, including Super Mario History 1985 to 2010 soundtrack CD, Nintendo Sound Selection, Endings and Credits, and the 30th anniversary Super Mario Bros. Music. The music has been rearranged and incorporated into numerous subsequent Nintendo games, including Galaxy 2, Super Mario 3D Land, Super Mario 3D World, Mario Kart 8 in 2014, Captain Toad Treasure Tracker in 2014, Super Smash Bros. For Wii U in 2014, Super Mario Odyssey in 2017, and Super Mario Maker 2 in 2019. Film composer Brian Tyler even wove select compositions into melodies he wrote for the Super Mario Bros. Movie. The music has been performed live in concert by the Kanagawa Philharmonic Orchestra, the WDR Rundfunk Orchestra, Köln, and London Philharmonic Orchestra. And when the Nintendo Music app launched on October the 30th of 2024, Super Mario Galaxy was one of 7 Super Mario games featured on it. Honestly, the fact that this game's music has been performed by Philharmonic orchestras around the world tells you everything you need to know about its quality. It's not just good game music, it's good music, period. Now let's talk about something that really sets this game apart. Super Mario Galaxy is recognized for having genuine narrative depth, which is honestly kind of shocking for a Super Mario game. But Galaxy explores themes of isolation, grief, found family, acceptance, and rebirth, and it does it with real grace. The outer space setting does a lot of heavy lifting here. Most galaxies are surrounded by these vast dark skies with stars and distant suns scattered across them. And throughout the game, there are story moments, missions, locations, and musical cues that deliberately pull your attention away from all the energetic, joyful platforming to focus on the cold emptiness of space. It makes Mario feel incredibly small against this infinite, uncaring universe. Video essayist Jacob Geller pointed out that these quieter moments give you a chance to decompress after intense gameplay sections and puts you in a contemplative headspace. The feeling is existential and a little sad, but never hopeless. It's a really delicate balance. Then there are the Lumas, and oh boy, once you really think about them, they do hit kind of different. These adorable childlike creatures are destined to become celestial bodies when their lives end. The objects you interact with throughout the game, launch stars, pole stars, and so on, are implied and sometimes directly shown to have once been Lumas themselves. Yellow Lumas became launch stars, blue ones became pole stars. You get the idea. And those hungry Lumas? You feed them star bits, and they permanently transform into entirely new planets and galaxies that are immediately bursting with plant life and sometimes even have communities or creatures already living on them. As critic Benefel argues, this mechanic implies that literally everything in the game, from entire worlds to animals to tiny objects, is made from Lumas, and this interpretation gets confirmed directly within the game itself. This cycle of rebirth likely draws from the real life cycle of stars. In reality, the vast majority of elements, including every single one that makes up living things, were forged inside dying stars and scattered across the universe when those stars exploded. It's poetic when you think about it. Benefel equates the Luma's transformation with death, which is usually treated as something dark and negative in storytelling. But she makes the point that it's through this dying that new life comes into existence, including newborn Lumas. It's not tragic in the traditional sense, it's essential. The universe in this game runs on an entropic cycle of continuous rebirth, and that's actually kind of beautiful. All of these themes reach their peak through Rosalina. She's the emotional center of this entire game, and honestly, one of the most interesting characters Nintendo has ever created. As the overseer of the Comet Observatory and the caretaker of the Lumas, she reads as a maternal figure. She maintains this warm, safe domestic space, and that feeling is only amplified by the contrast with the cold, empty void of space surrounding it. She's presented as a figure of reliable support with abilities that border on godlike. She's omnipotent, wise, and essentially timeless, having lived for centuries. You literally cannot be hurt while you're on the Comet Observatory with her, and it's implied that she's the one who catches Mario and brings him back to safety whenever he falls off the ledge. As long as you're with her, nothing bad can happen to you. But here's what makes her so compelling. Despite all that warmth and security that she projects, there's this undercurrent of reservation and longing and quiet sadness to her. And you won't understand why unless you go into the library on the observatory, which is completely optional and not tied to any completion requirement. Most players could finish the entire game and never know this part exists. In the library, Rosalina reads a storybook about her past. A long time ago, she lived on Mario's homeworld. Her mother passed away when she was still a child, and she was deep in grief when she encountered one of the predecessors of the apricot Luma. This little Luma had lost his mother before crash landing on her world, and he was just sitting there, waiting for her to come back. Rosalina befriended him and decided to wait alongside him. After years of waiting with no answer, they finally went into space together to search for her directly. It's during this journey through space that Rosalina becomes Mama to the Luma, right at the moment when he tearfully accepts that his mother is truly gone. Over time, more lost Lumas find their way to Rosalina and begin to see her as their mother too. Then, at the end of the story's emotional peak, with Rosalina overwhelmed by memories of her own mother, the apricot's Luma transforms himself into a comet. He does this so that Rosalina can travel the stars and visit her homeworld again. And it's through this selfless sacrifice that Rosalina realizes she was never truly alone. She finds her purpose in life, embracing the role of mother for the Lumas, her found family, just as her own mother had done for her. If that doesn't get you at least a little emotional, I don't know what to tell you. Alright, let's explain the actual plot of the game from start to finish. Because remember, this is widely considered the best story ever told in a Super Mario game. Every 100 years, on the eve of the Star Festival, a comet soars over the Mushroom Kingdom and sends stars raining down to the world below. Princess Peach invites Mario to her castle to celebrate and tells him she has a special gift waiting for him. Sweet, right? Well, things go sideways fast. As Mario arrives at the castle gardens, Bowser rolls up with his airships and starts trapping the toads in crystals. He invites Peach to witness the creation of his brand new galaxy, which is one heck of a power move. And then he uses a UFO to literally rip her castle out of the ground and haul it toward the center of the universe. Peach and two unlucky toads get taken along for the ride. Mario manages to grab onto the castle just before it launches into space. But right when he's about to reach Peach, Kamek appears out of nowhere and blasts him with a spell, sending him tumbling off the castle and spiraling deep into the void. Before Kamek warps the castle away with another spell, an apricot Luma that Peach had been holding escapes and goes searching for Mario. Mario wakes up on a small grassy planet, greeted by the apricot Luma, where he meets other Lumas and Rosalina, this mysterious woman who serves as the protector of the galaxies and the mother of the Lumas. She explains that her ship, the Comet Observatory, had its power star stolen by Bowser, and without them, it can't travel through space. She asks Mario to recover the power stars and promises to help him rescue Peach and take down Bowser in return. To aid him, Rosalina gives Mario the apricot Luma, who grants him the ability to spin and travel across space. Together, they journey to galaxies accessed through different domes on the observatory to collect power stars. Completing a mission in the galaxy earns you a power star and unlocks the next mission. Most domes contain 5 galaxies. Once you've gathered enough stars, the final galaxy in each dome turns out to be one of Bowser's strongholds, where either Bowser or Bowser Jr. is guarding a grand star, a larger and more powerful version of a regular power star. Rescuing a grand star opens the next dome, and once enough power stars are collected overall, the Comet Observatory gains the power to carry Mario to the center of the universe. After fighting through Bowser's brand new galaxy and defeating him in a final showdown, Mario grabs the last grand star and saves Peach. But just when you think it's over, things get intense. A massive sun in Bowser's nearly completed galaxy collapses into a supernova and becomes a supermassive black hole that starts swallowing everything around it. In a moment of pure selflessness, the Lumas from the Comet Observatory, including the apricot Luma, throw themselves into the black hole to neutralize it. The black hole evaporates in an enormous explosion. Mario finds himself face to face with Rosalina, who shields him from the destruction and tells him that this is not the end. It's a new beginning. The universe repeats its cycle endlessly, each time slightly different from the last. Mario wakes up back in the Mushroom Kingdom near Peach's castle, and he sees all the friends and enemies he encountered during his adventure celebrating together. He notices Bowser and Peach lying nearby as they start to stare. When he looks up at the sky, he spots a newborn galaxy forming, and Rosalina's words echo in his mind. Mario stands up and shouts, "Welcome, welcome, new galaxy," as the camera pulls back into space, revealing the reconstructed universe in all its glory. And if you go the extra mile and collect all 120 power stars, there's a special scene after the credits. Rosalina thanks you directly and says, "I will watch over you from beyond the stars," before departing with the Comet Observatory. Then, alone in the debris left by the black hole, a small apricot Luma appears behind a battered starship. It's a quiet, beautiful callback to the cycle of the universe. Everything that happened will unfold again, with a lost little Luma out there searching for its mother, starting the whole journey anew. Honestly, for a Mario game to pull off something that emotionally resonant is kind of incredible. Shigeru Miyamoto once stated that he considers Super Mario Galaxy to be the true sequel to Super Mario 64, not Sunshine. That's a significant distinction, and while the game wasn't initially categorized this way, it has since been internally recognized at Nintendo as a fundamentally different kind of 3D game from what came before. It directly shaped the structure of the next 3 3D Super Mario titles, which are collectively referred to as the Course Clear style games. The first of those was Super Mario Galaxy 2, a direct sequel and notably the first time a 3D Super Mario game launched on the same console as its predecessor since Super Mario Land 2: 6 Golden Coins. Galaxy 2 built on the original's design philosophies, but took things further in the direction of accessibility. Its courses are more linear with more 2D sections, the space theming is toned down, gameplay elements like the world map and Prankster Comet are simplified. The hub world is smaller than the Comet Observatory, and the unique storytelling that made Galaxy so special is significantly muted. All of these changes were made to widen the audience even further and reduce how much players needed to deal with camera controls. That streamlining trend continued with Super Mario 3D Land and Super Mario 3D World, the other two Course Clear style entries. These games were seen as borrowing more from the new 2D Super Mario Bros. Series than from the open exploration style or Hakoniwa? I don't know how to pronounce it, but the Hakoniwa style of earlier 3D Mario games. Super Mario Odyssey was the first 3D Mario in 15 years that wasn't explicitly tied to Galaxy's design legacy, but it still incorporated ideas that trace back to the game. The Moon Kingdom was deliberately designed to contrast with Galaxy's visual style by using more realistic terrain. Gravity is weaker in the Lunar Kingdoms, making jumps floatier, and a few 2D segments even include spherical worlds. Director Kenta Motokura credits Galaxy as the inspiration for Snapshot mode. Multi-moons function similarly to grand stars, and the royal seeds in Super Mario Bros. Wonder from 2023 serve an analogous role too. Beyond the mainline games, Galaxy's visual identity has been woven into practically every space-themed setting in Mario spin-off titles since. Rosalina became a recurring character across mainline games and spin-offs, frequently showing up as a playable option starting with Mario Kart Wii. She regularly appears alongside the classic Super Mario cast in physical Nintendo promotional material like at Narita International Airport. Lumas, Starbits, and the Toad Brigade had also become staple elements of the franchise. The Toad Brigade captain alone has appeared in 5 subsequent mainline games and even got his own dedicated title. The starting planet of Gateway Galaxy can be spotted on the Yoshi's Adventure Ride at Super Nintendo World, and Ray shows up in Mario Kart Bowser's Challenge Ride. And here's a fun one. For the 40th anniversary of Super Mario Bros., a character balloon based on Mario's appearance from the Galaxy box art is scheduled to float through the 99th Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade in New York City on November the 27th, 2025. That's how iconic this game's imagery has become. Super Mario Galaxy was the last time Yoshiaki Koizumi directed. After that, he moved into producer roles for subsequent Super Mario projects. From 2013 to 2023, he served as the representative director at 1UP Studio, a sister studio to Nintendo EAD that primarily focused on developing 3D Super Mario games. Koichi Hayashida, who was the level design director on Galaxy, went on to inherit the director's chair for all the 3 Course Clear style 3D titles that followed. And as for Miyamoto, Galaxy was the last Super Mario game he was seriously hands-on with until Super Mario Run in 2016. Now, to be fair, Super Mario Galaxy wasn't technically the first game to feature spherical worlds that rotate under the player character, but let's be real, it's the definitive example. Whenever a game tries something similar, it immediately gets compared to Galaxy, even if it came out earlier. And honestly, very few developers have even attempted to recreate that kind of 3D spherical world design. From Nintendo themselves, Galaxy 2 was the last title to include those types of levels. In 2008, a company called Fantawild released a knockoff for the Chinese market called Dulu-Dubi-Star that featured spherical worlds. Rosalina was proposed as a new fighter during the earliest planning stages of Super Smash Bros. For Nintendo 3DS and Wii U, specifically because they wanted to capture the floaty feel of Galaxy in her aerial moves. The game has also been cited as a direct inspiration for titles like Armillo in 2014, Gravity Ghost in 2015, Gears 5 in 2019, Solar Ash in 2021, and Mario + Rabbids Sparks of Hope in 2022. Alright, now let's move forward to Super Mario Galaxy 2, and the story behind this game is honestly kind of wild. So after Nintendo wrapped up the first Super Mario Galaxy, Shigeru Miyamoto basically walked up to the dev team and was like, "Hey, let's make another one." The original plan? Super simple. They were just going to take the planets from the first game, do some new spins on them, and call it Super Mario Galaxy More. Yeah, seriously, that was almost the name. During early development, they even nicknamed it Super Mario Galaxy 1.5, figuring they could knock it in about a year. Not exactly the most ambitious pitch, right? The first things they actually put into the game were ideas that got cut from the original. Stuff that didn't make it in either because of balancing issues or just running out of time. That included Yoshi, finally, and this fun concept of a planet shaped like Mario's head. But here's where things got interesting. As they kept working, more and more fresh ideas kept flooding in, and eventually they looked at what they had and realized, okay, this isn't just a little add-on anymore, this is a full sequel. So what was supposed to take 1 year ended up taking 2.5. Koichi Hayashida directed the game, while Takeshi Hayakawa served as lead programmer. Hayakawa actually built a really cool development tool that let different team members, including the visual and sound designers, jump in and create stages on their own without having to wait around for programmers. A bunch of these stages made it into the finished game, which is pretty awesome when you think about it. Now, the team knew they needed Super Mario Galaxy 2 to feel different from the first one, not just more of the same thing. Their big idea at first was to center the whole game around switching, where the environment would dramatically transform under certain conditions. Cool concept, right? The problem was, actually pulling that off across the entire game turned out to be a nightmare, so they scaled it back and only used it in certain levels instead. Oh, and get this. Some of the developers wanted to throw in cameos from other Nintendo characters, specifically Donkey Kong and Pikmin. Can you imagine little Pikmin running around in a Mario game? Well, Miyamoto shot the idea down pretty fast. He said Pikmin characters just wouldn't fit in the Mario universe, and there really wasn't a good reason for crossover cameos like that. Fair enough, honestly. One thing they were really thoughtful about was tutorials. Since a lot of players had already gone through the first game, they didn't want to force everyone through the same hand-holding all over again. So they created an optional system called the Tip Network that you could use if you wanted help but could totally ignore if you already knew what you were doing. Miyamoto actually compared the relationship between Galaxy 2 and the original to The Legend of Zelda Majora's Mask and Ocarina of Time, since both sequels ran on the same engine as their predecessor but built something genuinely new on top of that foundation. The game got its big debut at E3 2009 on June the 2nd, right alongside New Super Mario Bros. Wii. During Miyamoto's private conference, they said the game was actually pretty far along in development already, but Nintendo held it back to a mid-2010 release window. Why? Because New Super Mario Bros. Wii was coming out later that year, and they didn't want the two games competing with each other. Smart move, honestly. Miyamoto also dropped some pretty bold numbers, saying that 95 to 99% of what you'd see in Galaxy 2 would be brand new content. He specifically called out Yoshi's inclusion and the drill mechanic as examples of the new stuff. On the flip side, he was also upfront about wanting to strip back the story. His philosophy was basically to go with as little plot as possible this time around, which, you know, some people loved and some people weren't thrilled about. Speaking of things to look forward to, Nintendo of America's president and CEO, Reggie Fils-Aime, mentioned in an interview that the sequel would be more challenging than the original. So if the first game ever felt too easy for you, they heard you loud and clear. Miyamoto also hinted that the game might use something like the Super Guide feature from New Super Mario Bros. Wii, and sure enough, Nintendo's senior manager of product managing, Bill Trinan, later confirmed it. But it worked differently here. They called it the Cosmic Guide, where the Cosmic Spirit, who's actually Rosalina by the way, would take control of Mario and show you how to get through a section. Beginners could also lean on the Tip Network for hints and move tutorials during gameplay. And if you were playing in Japan, Europe, or Australia, your copy actually came with a special DVD packed with tips covering basics and expert techniques. North American players got pointed to the official website and the Nintendo channel instead. Here's a fun bit of trivia for you as well. The debut trailer from E3 2009 and the Media Summit trailers actually had some differences from the final game. The starting planet in Blue Moon Galaxy originally looked a lot like the crystal planet from Space Junk Galaxy in the first game. When you used a dash pepper, you didn't glow or leave a glowing trail like you do in the finished version. And Gadget Galaxy's background showed up in places like Tall Trunk Slide and Space Storm's Galaxy's Topman Tower, which obviously got changed later. It's always cool to see new things evolve during development. Okay, and can we talk about the soundtrack for a second? Because it's, well, no shock, it's incredible. Just like the first Super Mario Galaxy, Galaxy 2 features a full orchestral score performed by a symphony orchestra, credited as the Mario Galaxy Orchestra. But here's the thing, when the game was still in its Galaxy 1.5 phase, there weren't even plans to create new music. They figured they'd just reuse the first game's soundtrack. As the project grew into a proper sequel though, the sound team, led by Mahito Yokota, realized the new gameplay mechanics needed fresh music to match. They were actually hesitant about using a symphony orchestra again because recording one is apparently a real headache. But when they brought it up to Miyamoto, he gave the green light immediately. His reasoning? Players would be expecting orchestral music after the first game. He also suggested that fans would want to hear arrangements of tracks from the original Galaxy, which is why the final soundtrack is this wonderful mix of brand new pieces alongside arrangements from the first game and even throwbacks to older Mario titles like Super Mario World and Super Mario 64. Ryo Nagamatsu, who had previously worked on Mario Kart Wii, Wii Sports Resort, and New Super Mario Bros. Wii, contributed 9 pieces to the score. Koji Kondo recruited 60 musicians for the orchestra, which was actually 10 more than what they used for the first game. On top of that, another 10 musicians were brought in to provide big band-style music with trumpets, trombones, saxophones, and drums, bringing the grand total to 70 players. The orchestral performances were conducted by Taizo Takemoto, who's well known for his work with the Super Smash Bros. Concerts back in 2002. Kondo himself served as supervisor and also personally contributed 5 pieces to the soundtrack. Japanese Club Nintendo members could even get the soundtrack as a 2-disc set featuring 70 songs from the game. Pretty sweet deal if you ask me. So how did the game go over with critics? Phenomenally, as you might expect. Super Mario Galaxy 2 received widespread acclaim, with reviewers praising its creativity and technical improvements over the original. Most agreed that it either matched or straight up surpassed the first Mario Galaxy, which is saying a lot considering how beloved that game already was. It pulled an average score of 97% on game rankings and 97 out of 100 on Metacritic, putting it among the highest rated games on both sites, right along its predecessor. That said, critics were a bit divided on 2 things: the scaled back story and the higher difficulty compared to the first game. But overall, the consensus was overwhelmingly positive, and to this day it's frequently regarded as one of the greatest video games ever made. It also became one of the best-selling games on the Wii, moving over 7 million copies worldwide. Super Mario Galaxy 2 kept a ton of what made the first game great, like the outer space setting, gravity-based gameplay, items like the Beam Mushroom and Spring Mushroom, and navigational tools like Launch Stars and Sling Stars. But it also introduces plenty of new stuff, including Yoshi, new power-ups like the Cloud Flower, and those beginner-friendly guide features we talked about earlier. Every version of the game except the North American one came with that beginner's DVD to help newcomers to get the hang of things. The game also got new life years later. It became the first Wii title to be digitally re-released on the Wii U's Nintendo eShop, and then, in celebration of the 40th anniversary of Super Mario Bros., an enhanced port with upscaled graphics launched on a Nintendo Switch on October 2nd, 2025, both as part of the Super Mario Galaxy plus Super Mario Galaxy 2 bundle and a standalone digital release. 15 years after its original launch and it's still getting love. Love to see it. So at its core, Super Mario Galaxy 2 plays a lot like the first Galaxy game. You're running around these 3D planets that come in all kinds of shapes and sizes, with different surfaces and gravity doing its thing. It's platforming, but in space, which actually makes everything cooler. A bunch of power-ups from the first game come back, like the bee mushroom, boo mushroom, spring mushroom, and fire flower. But they also threw in some new toys, like the rock mushroom and the cloud flower, which we'll get into later because they're honestly pretty fun. You've also got launch stars flinging you between planets, your trusty Luma buddy, and Mario spin moves smacking things around. Oh, and there's this whole dark matter concept going on too. It's basically what cosmic clones are made of, and it also acts as portals that airships pop out of, which is kind of creepy if you think about it. Those 2D stages from the first game, they're back too, and they've added a bunch of new stuff to them. One slightly annoying thing though, the game only gives you 3 save file slots instead of 6 like the first one had, and you can't even copy files anymore. Why, Nintendo? Why? Controls are pretty standard Wii fare. You move Mario with the analog stick, jump with one button, and use another to crouch, do somersaults, and pull off long jumps. Basically working the same way the trigger did back in Super Mario 64. You can snap the camera behind Mario or manually adjust the angle. And if you press the upper part of the D-pad, you get a first-person view so you can look around. The Wii Remote's motion sensors are also in play here. Your pointer shows up on screen as the star pointer, and you use it for all kinds of stuff like grabbing pull stars, messing with sling pods, and scooping up star bits. Give the Wii Remote or the nunchuck a shake and Mario does his spin. Simple enough, right? Now here's where things get really exciting. One of the biggest additions in this game is that Yoshi's here! Yay! When Mario finds a Yoshi egg, he can crack it open and hop on his dinosaur pal. And Yoshi isn't just along for the ride either. He's got these special fruits that completely change how he works. Feed him a Dash Pepper and he turns into Dash Yoshi, blazing forward at ridiculous speeds for about 8 seconds. He just goes until he smacks into something or the effect wears off. But you can steer him by tilting the controller. You can even sprint up steep hills and run across water, which is honestly hilarious to watch. Give him a blimp fruit and he becomes Blimp Yoshi, puffing off like a balloon and floating upward while slowly leaking air from his mouth. You control where he drifts by tilting, and you can hold the button to slow down the air loss and keep him from rising. Once the air is gone, he deflates back to normal, or you can shake the controller to pop him out of it early. Then there's the Bulb Berry, which turns him into Bulb Yoshi. Thought I was gonna do it again? Nah. He literally glows and reveals hidden platforms that you can't see otherwise. You only get about 10 seconds of light though, and the glow gradually shrinks. Once it's gone, those platforms vanish and you're out of luck unless you grab another berry to reset the timer. Pretty tense stuff. When you're riding Yoshi, your Wii Remote cursor transforms into a red sphere that locks onto targets for his tongue. You can use it to gobble up enemies and swing from special flowers scattered around the levels. It's so satisfying. Speaking of things that are satisfying, this game is absolutely loaded with references to all the Mario titles. You'll hear an arrangement of the classic ground theme from Super Mario Bros., which is itself a slight twist on a version used in Toy Time Galaxy for the first Galaxy game. There's Supermassive Galaxy, which is basically a love letter to Giant Land from Super Mario Bros. 3, with everything being absurdly oversized. You get an arrangement of the athletic theme from Super Mario World. The checkpoint flag system from New Super Mario Bros. Wii shows up. There's Throwback Galaxy, which is literally Whomp's Fortress from Super Mario 64 reimagined. And on top of all of that, you get arrangements of both the main theme and the slider theme from Super Mario 64. They really went all out with the fan service here. So how do you actually navigate between all these galaxies? Well, just like the first game had the Comet Observatory, this one has Starship Mario. It's a planet shaped like Mario's head, which is both adorable and slightly unsettling. You can walk around and explore it like you could with the observatory, though it's smaller. And get this, the game has a total of 242 stars to collect. That's twice the number from the first Galaxy game. You're looking at 120 power stars, 120 green stars, and 2 extra power stars tucked away in Grandmaster Galaxy. Good luck with that one. Multiplayer returns from the first game, but it's been beefed up. The second player still gets a star pointer, but now they control a co-star Luma instead of just being a cursor. In the first game, Player 2 could stun enemies and collect star bits, and that's still there. But now they can also grab coins, including purple coins, pick up mushrooms, actually defeat enemies by spinning, stop the star ball while Player 1 is rolling on it, activate checkpoints, and flip switches. So your buddy actually gets to do some meaningful stuff this time around. So you know those moments where you hit a wall in a game and just cannot figure out what to do? Super Mario Galaxy 2 has your back with some assist features, similar to the Super Guide from New Super Mario Bros. Wii. First up is the tip network, which pops up in some levels and shows you a short demo of Mario performing certain actions to help you progress. Think of it as a little hint video. Then there's the Cosmic Guide mode, which is the big one. If you're really struggling with a tough section, this entity called the Cosmic Spirit shows up and asks Mario if he needs help. Say yes, and the game basically plays itself through the level to get the star. You can take back control at any point by pressing a button. But here's the catch. If you use this mode at all, you only get a bronze star instead of a gold one. You'll have to go back and beat the level properly without the guide if you want that shiny gold star. Fair trade, honestly. Unlike the first game, where you basically had to play through the whole thing twice to use Luigi, this one handles it way better. In certain levels, you can switch between Mario and Luigi. Once you clear Bowser's Galaxy Generator, Luigi becomes available to play as in any level you want. And he plays differently too. Just like in most Mario games, he jumps higher but his traction is worse, so he slides around more. Classic Luigi. Now let's talk about the setting, because it's honestly pretty cool. The game takes place in outer space. Aside from the prologue, which is set in the good old Mushroom Kingdom, every single level happens on distant planets and celestial bodies out in the cosmos. Each level is called a galaxy, and a galaxy is basically a cluster of planetary objects that you travel between. Most of these planets have their own gravitational pull, which is genius because it means Mario doesn't fall off the ledge into the void. It also makes it really hard to get lost. There aren't many walls or ceilings blocking your path, and if you just keep running in one direction, you loop back right where you started. Most planets are spherical or have rounded edges that makes this work. Some planets are more traditional though, structured like classic Mario courses with gravity pulling straight down beneath them. A lot of galaxies actually take place on 2D planes too, where Mario's movement is restricted accordingly. So if you're on a side-scrolling section, you can't accidentally tilt into the Z-axis and fall to the side. Some galaxies are entirely 2D, while others mix both 2D and 3D segments, usually switching between them on specific planets with environmental cues. Many galaxies also have switches built into the landscape that change the entire level when you interact with them. Some flip the gravity between the floor and the ceiling, others slow down time or shift platforms around when Mario spins. It keeps things fresh and unpredictable. Interestingly, the space theme is actually more toned down compared to the first game. While some galaxies still have those gorgeous skyboxes with nebulas and stars, the most common backdrop is just a blue sky with fluffy clouds. But the game still conveys that you're in space in its own way. As Starship Mario travels along, it passes through asteroid belts, falling stars, and black holes. Lumas, those cute little star children from the first game, show up in nearly every galaxy and on the hub. The whole vibe of the game is surreal and whimsical. The hub isn't some sleek spacecraft. It's a grassy planetoid shaped like Mario's head with a wooden bow like a sailing ship. Seagulls fly alongside it like it's cruising on the open ocean. The entire game is framed as an unseen narrator reading a storybook to you. And tons of locations have this wonderfully weird, almost Alice in Wonderland quality to them. There's a pair of robots having tea in a garden on the ship. Several galaxies look like topiaries and dollhouses. Some planets resemble wooden blocks, candies, clouds, and musical instruments. It's delightful. According to producer Shigeru Miyamoto, the 2D levels were included because they wanted to make the game more accessible and less intimidating for people who aren't comfortable with 3D platformers. The elaborate switch mechanics came from wanting to differentiate this game from its predecessor, similar to how The Legend of Zelda: Majora's Mask was set apart from Ocarina of Time. And a lot of elements that weren't in the first game actually shaped the visual design of the levels they appear in. For example, the first galaxy where you find the Spindrill, Spindic Galaxy, is designed to look like a construction site with enemies that burrow through dirt. Makes sense, right? Alright, so here's where the structure gets interesting. Unlike the previous 3D Mario games where you had a big open hub and chose levels freely, Super Mario Galaxy 2 uses a world map to access levels linearly. It's almost like the 2D games in that way. You access the worlds from the Starship Mario, and when Mario steps on a panel at the front of the ship, the camera zooms out to show the current world. The ship itself, shaped like Mario's head, acts as your cursor that you move between galaxies. Galaxies unlock after one another. Collecting a Power Star in one opens up paths to the nearest galaxies. The last galaxy in each world is a boss fight against either Bowser Jr. or Bowser, and beating them unlocks the next world. The earlier worlds have really straightforward paths between galaxies, but as you progress, the paths branch out more and more, giving you freedom to tackle galaxies in whatever order you feel like. One cool thing is that the galaxies within a single world aren't all themed the same way. Like, World 3 has forests, snow levels, and haunted houses all mixed together. You don't have to complete every single galaxy, but you can skip entire numbered worlds to reach the credits. Each galaxy has objectives called missions, and completing a mission earns you a Power Star. One mission equals 1 star. The mission structure is pretty similar to the first galaxy, but individual galaxies have fewer dedicated missions this time around, with none having more than 3. Compare that to the first game, where the biggest galaxies could have up to 6 missions. Some missions also have hidden green stars that only start showing up after you've collected all 120 normal Power Stars. Grabbing a green star counts as finishing the mission. Grandmaster Galaxy is the only course without any green stars. Altogether, there are 242 collectible stars in the whole game. Yeah, that's a lot. Some galaxies can only be unlocked by feeding hungry Lumas the star bits that they want. Once satisfied, they appear on the world map and warp you to Starship Mario. There's one hungry Luma in every world. They also show up inside galaxies, but those ones eat coins instead of star bits. Feed them enough coins and they transform into a planet containing a secret star. Other secret star missions unlock when you meet certain conditions, which causes NPCs to send letters to Mario asking for help or challenging him in galaxies he's already visited. The most frequent letter writer is the Chimp, this monkey from Fluffy Bluff Galaxy who's decided that Mario is his rival. You gotta love the confidence. After Mario beats Bowser's big lava power party and grabs 3 Power Stars from World 3, his brother, Luigi, starts popping up in some galaxies and offers to grab the Power Star for him. If you say yes, you get to play as Luigi for that mission until you finish or leave. Completing a mission as Luigi unlocks a staff ghost for that galaxy, which leads you toward hidden items or secret stars when followed. Once you clear Bowser's fortified fortress, Luigi becomes permanently available from a room at the back of Starship Mario, and you can use him in any level. Oh, and there's something really cool too. Super Mario Galaxy 2 is the first 3D Mario game to have a dedicated secret world that only opens after you beat the main story. It's called World S, and it's similar to the Special Zone in Super Mario World or World 9 in New Super Mario Bros. Wii. This world has several galaxies built around planets from the first Super Mario Galaxy, plus one galaxy based on the Secret of Rico Tower mission from Super Mario Sunshine. Pretty awesome surprise for completionists, if you ask me. Let's talk about the rock mushroom because it's one of those power-ups that just feels great to use. It looks like a regular mushroom but with a rough, rocky cap on top. You first encounter it in World 2 and it mainly shows up in the Boulder Bowl Galaxy, though it also appears in Melty Monster Galaxy and Freezy Flake Galaxy. When you grab it, Mario turns into a rock. Shake the Wii Remote and he encases himself in a boulder. You can also jump and then shake to accelerate. And in boulder form, Mario rolls around smashing into enemies and destroying purple crystals that have goodies inside them. If you hit certain crystals or enemies, the boulder breaks apart, but you can just shake the Wiimote again to form it. To go back to normal Mario, you jump and then press the Z button on the nunchuck, which cancels your momentum, or you can just stop moving and wait a few seconds. In Boulder Bowl Galaxy, the rock mushroom is essential. You need it for all the galaxy's power stars and 2 of its green stars. You find the first one on the starting planet inside a cage guarded by 3 elite Octoombas. And there are more scattered around the boulder-covered planets and the large cage planet. Over in Freezy Flake Galaxy, during the Sorbete's Chili Reception mission, there's a rock mushroom sitting on top of a cabin on the starting planet. You need it to uncover launch stars, which send you to the snowy field planet, where you also need the boulder form to collect 5-star chips to keep going. Melty Monster Galaxy has rock mushrooms in its rolling lane section and bowling course. You need them for a stroll down rolling lane and the Chimps Bowling Challenge missions. Fun fact, during the rolling lane mission, the game actually disables the button command that lets you break out of boulder form. So once you're rolling, you're committed. No takebacks. Now, the Cloud Flower is something else entirely. It's this little plant with a flower that looks like a cloud with eyes on it, which is cute in a weird way. Grab one and Mario becomes Cloud Mario. In this form, you can spin to create cloud platforms out of thin air. These clouds even have little faces on them. You can only have up to 3 clouds out at once, but grabbing another Cloud Flower refills your supply. Cloud Mario also handles differently. He falls slower and his long jumps cover more distance. There's actually a little known trick where the bounce you get from spinning onto your own clouds can boost the height of your jumps, though the timing is tricky to nail. You can ground pound your clouds to destroy them, but Mario will fall straight through if you do. Cloud Mario can also stand on certain clouds that would normally vanish under regular Mario's feet. The catch? If Mario touches water or takes damage, he reverts to normal and all his cloud platforms disappear, so stay dry. Cloud flowers first show up in Fluffy Bluff Galaxy and pop up in a bunch of other places throughout the game. In Puzzle Plank Galaxy, you use them to fight the boss Bugaboom. Cloudy Chords Galaxy introduces the mechanic where your cloud platforms get pushed around by wind, which adds a whole new layer of challenge. Starshine Beach Galaxy has you using clouds to reach the top of a tower. Throwback Galaxy requires Cloud Mario to collect silver stars. You need them in Bowser Jr.'s Boom Bunker to defeat the boss, and they show up in Bowser's Galaxy Generator until you get Yoshi. Here's a neat detail. The Cloud Flower is the only power-up that you can actually use on Starship Mario. It's also the only power-up that appears in Grandmaster Galaxy, the game's final and hardest level. During that galaxy's Daredevil run, you stay in cloud form the entire time since there's no water and no other power-ups to overwrite it. Contact with launch stars doesn't remove it either, but if you take damage, you're done. You lose a life and start the whole thing over. And here's a fun little audio Easter egg. The sound that plays when you pick up a Cloud Flower to refill your cloud supply, without having fully lost the power-up, is extremely similar to, if not identical, to the sound in Super Mario Sunshine when a fruit respawned at its permanent location. It's also the same as the sound of opening a nozzle box in that game. Nice little callback. Okay, so if you've played the first Super Mario Galaxy, you're probably wondering what actually changed besides the obvious new stuff. Turns out, quite a lot. Let me run you through the major differences, starting with gameplay changes. Mario and Luigi can no longer do that rapid spin while swimming underwater, an exploit from the first game that let Mario climb up slopes he shouldn't have been able to, patched. The game now saves automatically instead of making you manually save after every single power star, which is such a relief. If you get a game over, you just go back to the hub world instead of the first game's process of asking you to save and then booting you all the way to the title screen. Much less painful. There are only 3 save files now instead of 6, which is a bummer, honestly. On the bright side, Rosalina and Luma are new save file icons, and Luigi's icon is available from the start instead of needing to collect 120 power stars to unlock it. You still can't copy save files though. Bugaboom's boss fight got a makeover. Instead of using the bee mushroom and swinging flowers, it now uses the Cloud Flower and springs. Coins work differently too. They're now a general collectible like star bits. After you grab a power star, any coins you collected during the mission get added to a running total and you earn a 1-up for every 100 coins in your collection. The old rule of getting a 1-up for 50 coins in a single mission is gone. Checkpoints are now marked by visible checkpoint flags instead of being invisible, and the game tracks how long it takes you to beat each level, which is great for speedrun enthusiasts. Luigi is unlocked way more reasonably this time. You just need to defeat Bowser and unlock World S, instead of playing through the entire game twice. Cutscenes are presented in a storybook format, where you press a button to advance the dialogue. The game gives you a 1-up at 100 star bits instead of every 50. Collecting a life mushroom when you already have full 6 HP now gives you a 1-up instead of just doing nothing. When Malitoad delivers a letter from Princess Peach, he automatically hands over 5 1-ups instead of asking if you want them. And Luigi no longer gets the special treatment of receiving 20 1-ups from Peach's letters. He gets 5, same as Mario. Equal treatment, I guess. The credits are more interactive now too. Instead of standard scrolling credits, you actually play through various levels during them. And the first-person camera can turn a full 360 degrees instead of just 90 degrees in each direction. Moving on to how the levels are structured, in the first game, major galaxies had 6 power stars each, covering 3 missions, 2 prankster comets, one being a purple comet mission, and a hidden star. Minor galaxies had just 1 star from their single mission. In the sequel, major galaxies only have 3 power stars and minor galaxies have 2. The composition varies too. Major galaxies might have 2 missions and a prankster comet, 2 missions and a hidden star, or one of each. Minor galaxies might have 1 mission and a prankster comet, 1 mission and a hidden star, or 2 missions where the second is a challenge from the chimp or a jibberjay. Hungry Lumas inside galaxies now want coins instead of star bits, though the ones that create entire galaxies on the world map still want star bits. Speaking of which, Hungry Luma galaxies are now accessed directly from the world map like everything else, instead of through some alternate route outside a dome. The galaxy icons on the map are way more detailed and animated compared to the static models in the first game. This more dynamic icon style actually carried over into later games like Super Mario 3D Land and Super Mario 3D World. The prankster comets, they are no longer sorted into specific categories. They are all just called prankster comets now. Boss galaxies can have them too, which is new. During speedy and timed purple coin missions, the timer now stops and disappears once the star shows up, instead of continuing to count down until you physically grab it. Some speedy missions also have floating clocks you need to grab to keep their timer going. Cosmic comets and fast foe comets are gone, replaced by clone comets and double time comets respectively. The game now notifies you when a prankster comet appears in a galaxy instead of making you check yourself. And you can select any mission you want, even if a comet is orbiting. So the Comet Luma and its ability to move comets around doesn't exist anymore. If you lose a life during a comet mission, the game just restarts it immediately, instead of asking whether you want to retry it or go back to the hub. The music also got some changes. While a lot of soundtracks return, several have been reorchestrated with fuller instrumentation instead of keeping the synthesized sounds. This includes the Bowser battle theme, originally an arrangement of Bowser's Road from Super Mario 64, the Honey Hive and Gold Leaf Galaxy theme, the Toy Time Galaxy theme, itself based on the Super Mario Bros. Ground theme, the Mission Selection theme, and the level introduction music, as well as the Power Star and Grand Star fanfares, and finally, the jingle when returning to the hub. The boss battle theme used for Baron Burr and Underground Gunner was reworked for King Lakitu and Mandibug stack fights. When a star appears in a level, the music now switches to a soft "Star Appears" theme for the rest of the mission. In the first game, that only happened after boss fights. There are exceptions though. The Come Here Goomba and Come Here Top Man missions, along with both missions in Flash Black Galaxy, keep their regular music playing even after the star shows up. Malitoad no longer has the constant sound effect playing when you're near him, and he has a letter. During the egg phase of Dino Piranha and Fiery Dino Piranha's boss fights, as well as the first phase of Major Burrow's fight, a new track plays, the Boss Blitz Galaxy theme, instead of the originals. The Mandibug Stack mini-boss now has a proper boss theme shared with King Lakitu, rather than just using whatever music the level already had playing. Finally, some aesthetic tweaks. When a salesman Luma offers to sell you a 1-up mushroom or life mushroom, the dialog box now shows the item's name alongside its icon, matching how the Japanese version of the first game did it, instead of just showing the icon alone like the English version did. In the American version, gaining an extra life now displays 1 up, like the Japanese version, instead of 1 space up. The European version still uses the 1 space up though, because consistency is overrated apparently. The game over text changed from pink to yellow and got slightly wider. The very first star you collect is a power star guarded by a boss, whereas the first game had no boss for its first star. Text during the star collection animation and the "too bad" death screen is slightly larger. When returning to Starship Mario after getting a grand star, the text specifically says, "You got a grand star," instead of just, "You got a star." Similarly, collecting a green power star triggers, "You got a green star," instead of, "You got a hidden star." Fiery Dino Piranha's egg now has visible heat waves radiating around it, which is a nice touch. And Rainbow Mario is now a solid red color instead of cycling through the whole rainbow spectrum. A little less flashy, but still just as powerful. Now, the story isn't as deep as the first Galaxy game, but it's still worth talking about. The plot is described as another story of Stardust, and it picks up during the Star Festival, an event that only happens every 100 years. Princess Peach invites Mario over to share some cake while watching the shooting stars. Adorable, right? Well, on his way to Peach's castle, Mario stumbles across a lost baby Luma who takes a liking to him and hops right into his hat, giving him spin power. But when Mario gets close to the castle, he finds it under attack by Bowser, who's gone and made himself gigantic using power stars. Bowser snatches Peach and hauls her off to the center of the universe. Classic Bowser. In response, a group of Lumas who crashed near the castle offer to help Mario give chase by transforming into a launch star and launching him into space. After snagging a power star, Mario lands on a planet-like object where he meets Luba, who tells him that her crew and their spaceship got wrecked by Bowser too. Realizing they both need each other, Luba uses the power star to fix her ship and reshape it into Starship Mario, which of course becomes your ride for traveling through space and hunting down more power stars. Along the way, you've got to deal with Bowser's forces, including Bowser Jr. and the big guy himself. Eventually, Mario and friends track down Bowser's galaxy generator for the final showdown. After beating Bowser for the last time, his whole empire crumbles, and Peach is saved. A comet that was trapped by Bowser's fortress breaks free and turns out to be the comet's observatory. Rosalina shows up, thrilled to see Baby Luma safe and sound. Baby Luma, overjoyed to be reunited with his mama, heads back home and swipes Mario's cap as a souvenir. Mario's face during that moment is priceless, honestly. After the comet observatory departs, Mario and Peach head home aboard Starship Mario, and in a fun little visual gag, you can spot Bowser in a tiny form hanging around near Peach's castle. But wait, there's more. If you collect all 120 power stars and go beat Bowser again, you get a bonus scene after the credits, showing Rosalina reading a story to her Lumas in the Comet Observatory's library. She finishes the tale, possibly the event of the game you just played, and teases a new story about green stars. This unlocks green prankster comets across all the galaxies, and you've got to hunt down every single green star. Collect all of them to bring your total up to 240 power stars, and the Grandmaster Galaxy opens up in World S. It holds the last 2 power stars, and when you grab the final one, Rosalina herself congratulates you and appears on Starship Mario. Talk about a satisfying reward. And that's Super Mario Galaxy 2 for you. A game that started as a simple expansion and evolved into one of the most beloved platformers ever made. If you haven't played it yet, honestly, what are you waiting for? So, there you have it. We just went through everything about both Super Mario Galaxy 1 and Galaxy 2. And honestly, looking at it all laid out like this, it's kind of insane how much Nintendo packed into these 2 games. Like, we're talking about hundreds of stars, dozens of galaxies, tons of power-ups, completely unique gravity mechanics, full orchestrated soundtracks, and some of the most creative level design in platforming history. These games really were something special for the Wii, and they still hold up incredibly well today. What I think makes these 2 games so fascinating is how they complement each other. The first Galaxy gave us this grand emotional adventure with Rosalina's storybook, the Comet Observatory, and that whole cosmic atmosphere that just felt magical from start to finish. And Galaxy 2 came in and said, okay, but what if we just went absolutely nuts with the gameplay? More stars, more power-ups, Yoshi, tighter level design and world map structure, and all those incredible callbacks to classic Mario games. It didn't try to recapture the exact same magic. It carved out its own identity while building on everything the first game established. Whether you prefer the emotional depth and atmosphere of the original, or the sheer gameplay variety and creativity of the sequel, there's really no wrong answer. Both of these games represent Nintendo at the absolute top of their game. No pun intended. They pushed what a 3D platformer could be and set a bar that honestly very few games have reached since. If you made it through this entire video, first of all, thank you so much for sticking around. That genuinely means a lot to me. If you enjoyed it, you can keep your sleep going on with even more great content here at Syrric. For the next night of sleep, what about learning about the incredible lore of Zelda? It has so many insane little details that I honestly think you should not miss out on. Take care of yourself and I'll see you there.